Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph will begin Daf Chaf Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. We learned previously we had the machlokes between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Elazar in the case where you have the wine press. On the upper level you have the casket that is broken, it's cracked, the wine is seeping out, it's dripping down, and below on the lower level you have chulin, which are tamei. If the wine drips down to the bottom, it'll get mixed into the truma, the wine which is truma on top. They will fall to the bottom, get mixed into the chulin, which is tamei, and it will be metameh, the truma, and therefore you won't be able to drink it anymore. Rabbi Yeshua said that if you can save a revius b'tahara, you search for a kli and save it b'tahara. But if not, then take a kli which is tamei, and even though you're going to be metameh, but it'll prevent the wine from falling down into the chulin tameim and prevent it from becoming tamei. Because if it does fall to the bottom, and then it'll be a hefsed meruba, it'll be a large hefsed, and therefore we allow you, since in any event, if it's going to be tamei, it's not going to be able to be consumed, and therefore we say you can be metameh bayad to prevent the hefsed meruba. But Rabbi Elazar says you cannot. Now we ask, according to Rabbi Yeshua, well, why is it a hefsed meruba? Why can't you leave it in the state, let it fall to the bottom, don't be metameh, and use it in bit by bit over a long period of time to use it for ziluf, to sprinkle it and sprinkle it over the kalim, etc., and have it use it to have the aroma of it. And the aroma is something that was considered very valuable, the ziluf, to have the pleasant smell, the aroma from the wine, and it was considered to be valuable, so there's no hefsed meruba. The Gemara answered, because we're chayshesh for takala. We're afraid that you're keeping this wine, which is truma tameya, for a long period of time. You might inadvertently, forget and come to drink it. So since it's only something that can be used over a long period of time, we're afraid that it'll come lidei takala. So now the Gemara says, v'takala asma tanoihi. We see this concept of takola. If we're afraid that a person will come to a takola, he'll forget, and he might come to drink it or to eat it, and he'll be over. This itself is a subject of machlokes of Tanoim. We learned the brayso, if you have a barrel of wine of truma that became tamei, and Beis Shammai omrim teshafech chava. Beis Shammai says pour it out right away. Became tamei, pour it out right away, and don't pour it in slow over a period of time, gradually over a period of time. Beis Hillel omrim tasa ziluf, but Beis Hillel says no, that you can do ziluf. You can use it for sprinkling. Amar Rabbi Shmuel Rav Yosi, he said, Ani achriya, I'll be machriya. I'll tip the balance and decide that in one case it'll be like Beis Shammai, in the other case it'll come out like Beis Hillel. In one case it'll be a majority, I'll join with the side of Beis Shammai, and the other side with Beis Hillel. Bisada, what's the achra? Bisada, if it's in a field, tishavachal. If it's in a field, pour it out right away. Because if it's in a field, we're afraid that by the time you bring it into the house to do ziluf, you don't do ziluf in a field. Right there, over there, it's an open area. You don't do ziluf in a field, so it means bringing it back to the house. So we're afraid by the time you bring it back to the house, there you might come to drink it. So therefore in the field, pour it out right away. But if it's in the house, you can use it for ziluf. So if it's in the field, we're afraid that by the time you bring it to the house, you might forget and come to drink it. But in the house, tasa ziluf. Some say a different version. If it's new wine, pour it right away. Because new wine has to be aged. You can't use it for ziluf right away, it has to be aged. So we're afraid that over the period of time that it takes to age it, you might come to drink it. But that's in the Chodesh B'Yashan, Tasa Ziluf. If it's aged wine already, then it's already aged, it's right for zilov, then you can use it for zilov. Amr loy, the Chacham said to him, Ein achra shlishis machras. This is not considered bimachria, because this is a new opinion. Beis Shammai never said anything about the field or the house, nor Beis Hillel. So therefore, when Beis Shammai says it's also, it's not because they're chaysh takola, it's for a different reason. And Beis Hillel, the heter is, they're not also, they didn't differentiate between the field and the house. They didn't say that even in the field it's muter. So their machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel is of different considerations. What the machlokes is, it's not clear. But it's not a machlokes about takola. So what you're saying over here is you're saying a new opinion. You're saying a new opinion that the concern over here that the criteria is takola, and you're differentiating between the field and between the house, or between chodesh and yoshin. That's a new opinion. You can't use that to be machriya. But al kol panim, what do we see over here? We see over here that we said, according to Rav Yeshua, that he's chayish l'takola. So we see over here that similarly, Rishmal Rav Yesi, he holds of takola, but apparently Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, it's not a machlokes legabe takola or not. So now we had the machlokes of Rav Eliezer Rav Yeshua by are you allowed to be matama the wine of truma that's in the upper level of the press before it falls down and mixes with the chulin tameim. Amar Rav Yesi Rav Chanina, he says machlokes and afalapachs mimeasa chulin tameim. This whole machlokes is only if it would fall into less than 100 chulin tameim, and therefore it would become tomei. But aval nafal mei chulin tameim, but if it would fall into 100 or more of chulin tameim, meaning, and therefore it would become bottle, then everyone agrees that you let it fall down and flow down and become tomei v'al yatamena biyad, and you're not allowed to be matam biyad, because the whole reason that Rav Yeshua said that you're matam biyad is because since it's going to become tomei anyway, and there's a hefsed meruba, then we say then you can be matame biyad to prevent the hefsed meruba. But if it's going to fall into more than 100 of chulin tameim, it's going to become bottle. So if it's going to become bottle, then over here, then if it's bottle, then you can drink the wine. You can consume the wine. It can be used for as chulin. It's treated as chulin, and it can be drunk, be made tuma. When in the times when you're not concerned about tahara, one has to take out a measure of 100 and remove it, but the rest of it becomes bottle, and now is muter l'achil or muter b'shtiyah. So there is no hefsed meruba, and therefore Rav Yeshua would not allow you to be metamet under these circumstances. Tanya Namahachi will learn in the Braisa chavish and nishba b'gas aliyayna, that the chavis broke, it cracked in the gas aliyayna v'tachta meya chulin tameim. Says clearly that in the bottom there were meya chulin tameim. Then in such a case, Moed Rav Eliezer Rav Yeshua sha'im yochal hasel mimen ravis b'tahara, that you yatzil, that if you are able to save a ravis b'tahara you're matzel, but v'im lav, if not, you're not allowed to be matamed, teret v'thitame va'al yitamena biyad. That you are not allowed to be matam biyad, you're not allowed to collect in a cleat. It's tame, you have to let it flow to the bottom. So you see over here that the machlokes is only if it's less than meya, but if it's meya, they're maida. Now, frag the Gemara, fine, that's correct, that's true, but something in the Lashon doesn't seem to be accurate. It says Maida in such a case, Maida Rav Eliezer Rav Yeshua. Well, frag the Gemara, hi Maida Rav Eliezer Rav Yeshua, Maida Rav Yeshua, Rav Eliezer miboile. It should be the opposite. Rav Yeshua says you're allowed to be matam biyad. Now it's being qualified. The Bryce is qualifying. When does he say you're allowed to be matam biyad? Only if it's less than meya, but if it's 100 or more, you can't be matam biyad. So that's Rav Yeshua is Maida to Rav Eliezer. Rav Yeshua, who said in a case where it would fall into less than 100, he said you can be matama biyad. He's Maida in this case that you cannot be matama biyad. Amar Rav Epoch Enochanami, you have to switch it around. It's Maida Rav Yeshua to Rav Eliezer. But Rav Huna Bar Yeshua, he says, Loilam loy tepok. You don't have to reverse it, and you can explain it as follows. This is talking about a different case. This Moida that we're talking about is a different case, and it's Moida Rabbi Lezer to Rav Yeshua. He says, this case we're talking about Skina Bekli Shetayach L'Tayr V'Gava Tameh. We're talking about a kli where the interior is tahor, the outside is tameh, meaning it's tameh b'tuma d'rabbanan. For instance, the kli came into contact with a liquid, so the rabbanan made a heker to show that it's not a tuma d'raisa, so that if it came into contact with truma, you should not burn it. So we're talking about in this type of a kli, if it's a kli shetayach hator v'gava tameh, so the interior is tar. In this case, Rabbi Lezer might serve Yeshua that if you are able to collect the wine in this type of a kli, where the interior is tar, you can collect it in this type of a kli. And don't let it fall to the bottom, collect it in this type of kli, because it'll remain tar. So it's chorp sheet, of course. I mean, if it's tar, what's the shayla? No, but over here, the outside of the kli is tameh. So therefore, you might think, well, if he's going to use this, might come into contact, the outside of it might come into contact with the truma and be metamed. Kamash Malan, we say Rabbi Lezer is moida that it's better, even though there is that chance, but it's better to be collected in this kli that's in the interior tar, better than have it fall down to the bottom and become certainly tameh. Meaning, even though there's a chance that you might be metamed biyad over here, but since there's only a chance and falling down to the bottom, it'll certainly become tameh. This is preferable. The next parak. Second parak, Kol Shosh Mutalechos, says the Mishnah on Erev Pesach, as long as you're allowed to eat the chametz, then Machel B'hem, you're allowed to feed it to your animal. L'chaya, to the wild animals, the life is to the birds. You can sell it to a nochri. Umuter ba'anos, and it's muter ba'ano. We'll see in the Gemara why we need all of these different statements. And the prayer of muter ba'ano is poshut. If it's allowed to give it to the animals and to sell it to a nochri, of course it's muter ba'ano. The Gemara will discuss why we need these statements, why it's not redundant. But the implication is, the chiddush is that when it's muter to eat, it's muter ba'ano. That's a double poshut. But the chiddush is that when it's also to eat, then it's also b'hanom. So the Gemara will discuss this statement in more detail. When the time has passed, when it's also b'hanom, then when the time has passed, lo yaskim b'tana v'kirayim. You cannot use the chametz as fuel for the tanur kirayim, for a stove, or the stove tops, or an oven, or the kir, the type of stoves that they had in the time of the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda says, he says, in disposing of the chametz, when you remove it, it has to be done through sreifa, by sreifa. It has to be done davka, by burning. Rashi says, Rashi Shita is that's only during the 6th hour of the day, but after the 6th hour of the day, his midah is hashbasas b'chol davar. And Taisus argues, we had this machlokes, Taisus argues on with Rashi on this point. So Rabbi Yehuda says, they say, af mefar, you can even be mefar, crumble up, v'zor l'ruach, scatter it to the wind, or matal yam, or throw it into the sea. So any which way that you dispose it is also your yaitz with that as well. The Magen Avraham is medayik. It says af. You can also, but it's mashma that l'chadchila, even according to Chum, it should be done with sreifa. But this is also can be done. As the sheet of the Magen Avraham. Zok the Gemara, kol shoshem utalechol machil. So it says, whenever you're allowed to eat, you can feed it to your animal. So make a diuk, kol shoshem ena mutalechol ena machil. Make a diuk, anytime that you can't eat, you cannot feed it to your animal. So lema masnisim to like Rabbi Yehuda. Let us say the Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. So Taisus learns, he says that this lema masnisa like Rabbi Yehuda is not just a havamid, meaning the maskana, it is not like Rabbi Yehuda, as we'll see shortly. But meaning the point is let us say the Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda, but rather like Rabbi Meir. And on that, the Gemara's maskana is no, it's not like Rabbi Yehuda, and not like Rabbi Meir either. So what's Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir? Limas nisan the Lord Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbi Yehuda, ha'ika chamesh, de'ein oichel, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have the 5th hour of the day where eating is also. He holds Amid Rabbanan, even on the 5th hour of the day, it's also to eat, but you could feed it to your animal. There's not. Rabbi Meir says, kol chomesh, you can eat it the 5th hour, and you burn it at the beginning of the 6th hour. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Eichlan Kol Arba, you can only eat it, Rabbi Yehuda says, till the end of the 4th hour. But Thailand Kol Chamesh, the 5th hour, you can't eat it, but it's still Mutter Bahana. It's suspended. But it's Mutter Bahana, V'sarfim B'tchil Sheish. But you can burn it at the beginning of the 6th hour. Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have the 5th hour where you can't eat it, but you could feed it to your animal. So therefore, the Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. But perhaps we should say the Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir. That the Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir because Rabbi Meir says that you can eat it only the 5th hour, but comes the 6th hour, you can't eat and you can't feed it to your animal either. In fact, the Gemara of Rabbi Meir, you want to say that the Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir. Hi, kol shah muter lachol machel. What is the lashon of kol shah when it's muter to eat? You can be machel. Kol shah oichel machel b'bayla. Which rather should say, whenever you can eat, you can feed it. What does it mean, kol shah muter? When it's muter lachol, you can be machel. If it would be Reb Meir, it would say it simply, kol shah oichel miboy. Kol shah oichel machel miboyle. Whenever you can eat, you can feed it. So this kol shah muter implies that it's muter for one thing, that you can be machel on the other. You can be machel somewhere else. So Rashi says it can't mean that whenever it's muter midaraisa, to eat, which is meaning the beginning of the 6th hour, because midaraisa it's only also to eat at the end of the 6th hour. So, but maybe you'll say that whenever it's muter to eat midaraisa, you can be machil to your behema, it's muter ba'anon. Or she says it can't mean that, because everyone agrees that midrabanan, it's also from the beginning of the 6th hour, it's also bahana. So what is this lashon of kol ma'ashosh muter, that it's muter, you can be machil? So Amar Rabba Bar Ula. So the Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda, and it's not Rabbi Meir either. Masnis and Rabbi Gamliel. The Mishnah is going according to Rabbi Gamliel. This non Rabbi Gamliel. Aimer chulin nechol kol arba. He said if it's chulin, you can only eat it to the end of the 4th hour. Truma kol chamesh, but the kohen can eat the truma to the end of the 5th hour. V'sarfim b'tchil sheish, and you burn it at the beginning of the 6th hour. V'hachikam kol shah muter lechol kohen b'truma. So what the muter is when it's muter for someone. When it's muter for the kohen to eat the truma, which is the 5th hour, then Yisrael machal chulin lebehem l'chayaloi. If it's that 5th hour, Yisrael can feed it to his animals. It's muter b'ano. So that's a lashon of muter. Kol shosh, that's muter. Muter for someone. It's muter for a kohen to eat on the 5th hour. It's muter for the Yisrael to be machal tavano. Why does it have to go through the different one, behema and chaya? Why, if you tell me behema, I would know chaya. Or if you told me chaya, I would know behema. It's muter ba'anah, so you can feed it to your animals. Why is it necessary to say both? You need it. It's on a behema. I might have thought if it only said behema, the mishayach hazle. Because the behema, if it doesn't eat it all, if it doesn't consume it all, you'll see it. You'll see it, and therefore you'll dispose of it. And therefore we're not concerned that if some is left over, that it won't be disposed of. Aval chaya, but a chaya, perhaps you'll say the mishayach kamatzale, but a chaya, perhaps you'll say if it does not eat it all, you won't see it. The nature of the chaya is that it hides it. It'll hide it. It hides it in the cracks and the crevices and the corners. So perhaps you won't see it. Emaloi, and therefore perhaps I would say that you can't feed it to your chaya at that hour. at the 5th hour, because some might be left over. You won't see it, and you'll be over. So perhaps not. So that's why that's to tell me that even you can even feed it to your chaya. V'itana chaya, it only said chaya. I would have thought mishum de mishaya is masan. I would have thought because if it does leave over, the consequences aren't so severe, but not as severe as a behema, because at least it'll hide it away, and you won't be over on Bal Yirah. Might be over on Bal Yimotze, but not Bal Yirah. Aval behema, but behema zim the misharim. Sometimes it'll leave over v'lo masechet, and sometimes you might not realize, you might not think about it, and it's there, it's left over in an exposed place. V'koy aleh b'bal yirah bal yimotze, it'll be over Bal Yirah and Bal Yimotze both. Ein maloi. So since the consequences are so severe, I might think that you don't therefore feed it to your animal, to your behema, maybe dafke chai, but not a behema tzricha. That's why it has to say that for both, it's mutter to feed it to both of them. Oifais lamali, but why don't we need oifais? There's no chiddush by oifais. Where says enechanami? But I did tana behema v'chaya, tana nami oifais. There's no chiddush, but once already it says behema v'chaya, it says oifais as well to round out and complete the picture.